So one of the other things that I would love to talk about in the don't section is don't expect immediate results. So we've had a little bit of a mixed bag in this. Dave, I know that obviously I do a lot of like the posting and I have the access to the analytics and stuff. So week 1, okay, I just need to talk about this.
Yeah, let's bear it all, man.
Week 1, okay, we're pumped. We get this episode out. Aaron Anderson's on. Aaron Anderson set the stage, honest to God, for the entire podcast.
For sure.
I love that episode. That was episode 1 for those of you who maybe didn't listen to it. And he said, and anyway, the episode releases. And, you know, obviously we're pumped. We released a podcast episode, right? Like, holy cow, we did it. There's something out there. Our name's on it, this thing that we've created. And in my mind, I thought to myself, like a personal goal or something. I was like, if we have 50 people listen, that would be awesome. Dave, did you have any type of thought in your mind?
My expectations were lower, but I still had them. I go like, man, I'm going to be happy if 20 people listen.
All right.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Cause like we didn't really discuss it. Like me and you didn't discuss it, but we each had something in our head. So I was thinking if 50 people listen to this, like sweet. And I just figured, right, my family's like half of York County, so I can at least draw 50 family members, right? But here's we'll talk about that later. Anyway, I get on the analytics, and on day 1, I notice we have like 104 views, and I'm thinking, wow, like we doubled what I thought. This is awesome. And so I literally shut down the app and I don't look at it. Our podcast released on Thursday. Sunday, we're sitting around the pool at my mother-in-law's and we're just kind of chilling. And I thought, you know what? Let me see what the analytics look like. You know, let me see what we're looking at. So I bring up the app on my phone and all of a sudden the number says like 1,100 views. And I'm like, what just happened? Like I'm completely shocked. How did we get 1,100 views? And so I thought, well, it's Sunday. We probably have plateaued, and that's probably like the most. But like, holy cow, that's 20 times what I expected, and we must have done something right, is what I was thinking. Like something about this. So later on, like long story short, we are now, like if you look at that episode, it is still our most watched episode with over 2,400 views. And when we look at that episode, we're thinking to ourselves, like, that's the benchmark, right? 2,400 views or bust. You know what I mean? Because we've had this like immediate, like awesome result. So then we released our second episode, and that number is around 500 viewers. And even to this, like, that's what it's at today. And then we released the next couple, and all of a sudden, like, we have this downward trend. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what's going on? Like, what happened? And I think the moral of the story is, like, don't expect immediate results. There are algorithms out there on these platforms that when you put out a podcast episode for the first time, they push them out. They put them in front of people, and people will click on them, and they'll listen to them. But you got to have some time to actually find your benchmark number and to actually begin to steadily climb and to figure out and actually see that like a realistic trajectory of number of views. And then you can really begin to do some things to maybe try to improve your podcast to get better. But I think going into it, like, unfortunately, because we had such an awesome week 1, right?
Right.
And we didn't recognize that these different algorithms really push them out. Like specifically Amazon pushed our podcast out, and it was viewed. The majority of our views or our streams and listens came from Amazon, from like Alexa.
Yep. Crazy.
Which was awesome. But in all honesty, like, that was an outlier. That episode is legitimately an outlier. And so for the next few episodes, we've had to look at the analytics and kind of look at and see what's working and what's working and what's not working. But at the end of the day, we've kind of had to temper our expectations and just say, okay, here's a good benchmark. and then begin to pursue realistic goals. So, Dave, I know you haven't actually had a chance to look at all those numbers, but maybe you can just talk a little bit about like some experiences you've had in the numbers game, even if it's social media related.
Oh
It's very
man,
similar.
it is, and those numbers. I mean, it's good and it's exciting, and sometimes they're just a plain curse,
Yeah.
because you find yourself chasing the numbers instead of having legitimate metrics that you're really chasing after. And man, I'll tell you what, that's I mean, sure, who doesn't want immediate results, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we all
absolutely.
want
Yeah.
that, and there's nothing wrong with wanting that. So we're not coming down on anyone who kind of has that wish in their heart that like they put something out there, and hey, may that be true for you. That
Yes.
the thing that you put out there is just immediately successful. We want that for you. But if it's not, likely it's not going to be. That's the more consistent story. Then may the things that we're learning real time
hmm
as we go through this be encouragement to you to just you know and this was one of the things I had written down. Just kind of watch your wishes.
Right.
Keep your eye on them. Don't let yourself get disappointed if if the numbers or the things that you're hoping for don't happen immediately. Sometimes, I've learned this in other arenas, especially over this time. I'm currently working as the marketing director for a new cryptocurrency, and we had a very slow start, and everyone says, hey, look, in the crypto world, if you don't make it in the first 90 days, you're not going to make it. And I mean that phrasing is out there everywhere.
Right.
Well, our first 90 days they sucked. I mean, they're just not
Right.
good at all. But the difference was, and you mentioned this, Danny. I think that maybe it's not on my list either, but I'm realizing this is probably really important to talk about. When we come up against those times where we're at that place of disappointment, there's really one decision, one item that separates people from just going to a place where they essentially just eventually put that project down,
Right.
or they innovate. They look at what they're doing, they make it better. They're constantly looking. And we, in talking to the co-founders of Axe Token, just in our most recent episode 6,
Episode 6. Yeah.
yeah, we really talked about that idea of creating the foolproof offer. But that's really a process. You don't usually come out of the gate with the best offer ever, because taking in some of the things we've even talked about already, like being curious, listening really well,
hmm
listening to your clients, and learning how to make what you do better. If you'll be committed, instead of being committed to success, if you'll
Right.
be committed to improvement, then you will be successful. Then there's just absolutely no way. The only way that you lose is if you stop. And so I would just encourage all of you who are listening today, or whenever you listen, the reality is that we could do a much better job at changing. It's not lowering our standards. It's just saying, no, I'm going to be more committed to improvement than I am going to be to the allure of success. And I'm going to make sure that I'm watching my wishes. I'm kind of putting some guardrails on the results that I'm expecting, so that I'm allowing the journey that I'm on with your podcast or whatever project you're
hmm
working on to be the teacher, and to help you to become better and better. If you'll stick with it, eventually you'll have a great podcast, you'll have a great product, you'll have a great business, whatever it is that you're working on. If we change the things that we pursue and we put some guardrails on our expectations, great things will eventually come.
Yeah. I think it's funny.